Voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Israel Prime Minister says conflict could end tomorrow if Hamas lays down their arms and return all hostages. US President hails Sinwar death, says it's time to move on.
While this is not the end of the war in Gaza, it's the beginning of the end.
Hezbollah announces new escalating phase in conflict with Israel, says a large-scale attack is imminent. North Korean leader calls South Korea a foreign and hostile country, says road blast marks end of evil relationship with South. India's President Draupadi Murmu to hold bilateral talks with Malawi leadership on strengthening ties between the two nations. Well, on to the top story first. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the killing of Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar was the beginning of the end of the war in Gaza. Speaking after the military confirmed it had killed Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, Netanyahu said there could be an end to the war in Gaza if Hamas laid down their arms and returned all the hostages.
Yahya Sinwar is dead. He was killed in Rafah by the brave soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces. While this is not the end of the war in Gaza, it's the beginning of the end. To the people of Gaza, I have a simple message. This war can end tomorrow. It can end if Hamas lays down its arms and returns our hostages.
Well, global leaders hailed Israel's killing of Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar during an attack on Thursday. As Israel confirmed the elimination of Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind behind the October 7th attacks last year, US President Joe Biden said that it is a good day for Israel and for the world.
Good day for the world. I call these in now to congratulate him getting Sinwar. He had a lot of blood in his hands. American blood, Israeli blood, and others. And I told him that we were really pleased with his actions. And further that now's the time to move on. To move toward a ceasefire in Gaza. Make sure that we move in the direction that we're going to be in a position to make things better for the whole world. It's time for this war to end and bring these hostages home.
While terming the death of Hamas chief a turning point, French President Emmanuel Macron said it offered a crucial opportunity to end Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza. Speaking at a press conference after meeting with other EU leaders at a summit in Brussels, Macron said this occasion should be seized upon so that all the hostages can be freed and so that the war can be finally stopped.
This day is a turning point, as well as a military success for Israel. I think, as I say to the Israeli families of October 7, this occasion should be seized upon so that all hostages can be freed and so that the war can finally be stopped. Indeed, it is necessary to put an end to military operations and after this result, accept a ceasefire in Gaza to finally open a credible political perspective for both Israelis and Palestinians.
Well, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz pointed out that the Hamas chief had committed the worst crimes. Speaking to media after a meeting with EU leaders in Brussels, Scholz said Sinwar was responsible for the terrible, brutal, inhumane attack by Hamas on Israeli citizens on the 7th of October last year in the worst possible way. EU Commission Vice President and EU Foreign Affairs Chief Josep Borrell said Sinwar was an obstacle to an urgently needed ceasefire and the unconditional release of all hostages. In a social media post, Borrell said there must be an end to violence, liberation of hostages, and stop to the suffering of those affected. Well, the death of the architect of the October 7th attack on Israel last year represents a major boost to the Israeli military. It released a video of moments just before Hamas chief Sinwar's death. Israeli Army spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said there were no signs that Israeli hostages had been present in the building.
Our work is not done. We will not rest until we bring home all our hostages by any means. And we will continue to operate until we complete all our missions in defense of the people of Israel.
Meanwhile, Hezbollah has announced a new and escalating phase of its conflict with Israel. In a statement early on Friday, the terror group said the Islamic Resistance Operations Room had decided Israel will be targeted in the coming days. The statement reads, Hezbollah announces a transition to a new and escalatory phase in the confrontation with the Israeli enemy, which will be reflected in the developments and events of the coming days. The announcement came after the Israeli military on Thursday said its forces killed Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, which is a Hezbollah ally. The statement, however, made no mention of the Hamas chief. And U.S. President Joe Biden arrived in Berlin on Thursday for a rapid visit to discuss Russia's invasion of Ukraine with the leaders of Germany, France and Britain as Kyiv urges its Western allies to take urgent steps to end the fighting. Biden had originally been scheduled to convene a broader meeting of Ukraine's military supporters at the U.S. Ramstein Air Base in Germany last week during a planned three-day state visit to the country that would have been the first in nearly 40 years. He cancelled that trip to focus on dealing with Hurricane Milton, but is making up for it with a quick visit this week. The president will hold bilateral talks on Friday with Germany's president and chancellor before a planned meeting with the European Quad in the noon time. And the European Union leaders agreed on Thursday to use all the leverage, including trade, development aid and visa policy, to speed up returns of migrants illegally entering the bloc and asked the European Commission to urgently draft a law. Immigration is a highly sensitive topic in most of the bloc's 27 member states. EU leaders also discussed setting up return hubs in countries outside the EU where migrants whose EU asylum bids were refused could await deportation to their home country, providing it was safe to return them there. Out of 484,000 non-EU citizens ordered to leave the EU last year, only 20% returned home. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the Commission was working to improve this number and would soon present a law to deal with it.
We see that all those who have no right to stay in the European Union, only 20% of those who have a return decision really are returned to their countries of origin. So we're working to improve this operational work, and we will soon present a new proposal, legislative proposal for that.
Well, not all leaders were enthusiastic about the idea of setting up return hubs. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that for a country as big as Germany, asylum processing hubs outside the bloc would only be able to handle a fraction of requests.
It is clear that irregular migration must be reduced. You know that we have taken measures in Germany by improving and speeding up our own procedures, by introducing border controls, which have led to a significant reduction in the number of people arriving in Germany irregularly. And we will continue along with this path. Opt-out is not provided for. They both know that. The Dutch have even said so.
While Spanish Socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said migration was a positive phenomena and something that Spain and other European economies desperately needed to prop up ailing birth rates and their welfare states.
If we want to face the demographic challenge in Europe, if we want to ensure the sustainability of our pensions and the welfare state, and also guarantee the economic growth that Spain or Europe as a whole are currently experiencing, we also need the contribution of migration, and that migration has to be regular, safe and orderly. I say it clearly. We are not in favor of those kinds of formulas because they do not address any of the problems and create new ones. They do not tackle the issues and create new problems.
Well, moving on, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and NATO chief Mark Rutte presented a united front in Brussels that followed Kyiv's pitch for victory to EU leaders and NATO defense ministers. Mark Rutte said NATO members will not lose their shared will to support Ukraine, and Russian President Vladimir Putin would be wrong to think otherwise. During the press conference, Rutte said it was essential NATO continue to provide the country with military aid. Zelensky also reminded his allies that some commitments made at the NATO summit in July were still waiting to be fulfilled.
Strengthening of Ukraine, it's not only depending on the weapon, this kind or that kind, it's depending on the will. If our partners will not lose their unity, we will not lose.
We will not lose that unity.
It's
you
so
can count
important.
on that. And my message today to Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin is that if he thinks we will not. And today again is evidence. Look what the Australians have done, what the Germans are doing, what the US has done today. Again, announcing almost $500 million in anti-missile defense
package.
systems.
Well, Russia's defense ministry said that its forces had taken control of the village of Maximilianivka on Thursday. The village is less than 10 kilometers from the key city of Kurakhove in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. The Kurakhove sector, west of the Russian-held regional center of Donetsk, is one of the focal points of Russia's steady advance through the region. Russia has been present to reach the logistical hub of Pokrovsk, while Ukraine said that its forces had repelled 36 of 45 battles near Kurakhove over 24 hours. Well, the United States on Thursday imposed sanctions on 2 Chinese companies and a Russian affiliate involved in the production and shipment of attack drones used in Ukraine. The U.S. Treasury targeted Xiamen Limbach Aircraft Engine Company, which manufactures engines for Russia's Garpria drones, and Radilpas Vector Industry for shipping the drones. These sanctions mark the first direct U.S. action against Chinese entities producing complete weapon system for Russia. China's embassy in Washington condemned the sanctions, accusing the U.S. of hypocrisy for arming Ukraine while criticizing China's trade with Russia. And tensions on the Korean peninsula have reached a new high as North Korean leader Kim Jong Un declared South Korea a hostile state. This follows a constitutional amendment that formally drops the goal of reunifying the 2 Koreas. Speaking at the Second Corps headquarters on Thursday, Kim emphasized the growing threat from the South Korea-US alliance and the enhanced military maneuvers, calling for a stronger North Korean nuclear deterrent. North Korea's blasted road and rail links with the South, signaling not just the physical severing of ties, but what Kim calls the end of the evil relationship with Seoul. He declared this marks the complete removal of any hope of reunification, pushing forward a 2-state system. And still to come, indeed, India News Hour. Battleground state, North Carolina starts early in-person voting while recovering from Hurricane Helene. Ecuador is planning to take urgent steps to end power crisis as the South American nation hit by nationwide blackout. And in an unprecedented political saga, Kenya's deputy president impeached on 5 of 11 charges.
Today's episode was all about unique ideas that help us adapt to this new world where so much around us is changing.
We are forming communities to practice regenerative farming and learn how to control these problems naturally.
We have invested in a new battery park to stabilize it, and that makes it also easier for us to phase in renewables like wind and sun.
We're developing some AI tools which use imagery in our grow rooms. They can monitor them on a 24-hour basis, and they help us understand the prime time for picking so that we harvest those mushrooms at the perfect time of ripeness.
I have been using Ravichandran's vermicompost and have had good yields. Now I have used it for this 2-acre maize field. I'm planning to use it continuously. So far, the yield is good and the crops are doing well.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. Lepakshi Khurana, and moving on to some U.S. election updates. Early voting underway in the presidential battleground of North Carolina just weeks after Hurricane Helene left some residents still without power, running water and phone services. North Carolina could be crucial in determining a winner in the U.S. presidential race, as its voting preferences could swing either way. Supporters of both Harris and Trump were vocal as Hurricane Helene, which killed more than 200 people across 6 states, has sparked questions on how it might impact voter turnout. Polls show a very tight race with a handful of swing states likely to determine the winner, as Trump and Harris are in a dead heat in North Carolina. A survey showed Trump with 48% support in state polls as compared to Harris's, who's got 47.5% support. And meanwhile, during a campaign event in La Crosse in Wisconsin on Thursday, U.S. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris lambasted former President Donald Trump for calling January 6th, when his supporters stormed the Capitol to try to overturn his 2020 defeat, a day of love.
So now we here know January 6th was a tragic day. It was a day of terrible violence. There were attacks on law enforcement. 140 law enforcement officers were injured. Some were killed. And what did Donald Trump say last night about January 6th? He called it a, quote, a day of love. But it points out something that everyone here knows. The American people are exhausted with his gaslighting. Exhausted with his gaslighting. Enough! We are ready to turn the page!
While further, Harris said that the U.S. election is going to be a tight race until the very end at a rally in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
So, Green Bay, we have 19 days until Election Day. 19 days. So we are entering the home stretch. And this is going to be a tight race until the very end. Look, we are the underdog, and that's why we are, and I am campaigning to earn every single vote, because I intend to be a president for all Americans.
Well, Tesla CEO, ex-owner and billionaire Elon Musk hit the campaign trail for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania on Thursday, mobilizing Trump voters ahead of Election Day on 5th of November. While addressing the rally, Musk emphasized that Pennsylvania is important to the future of the world and is going to decide the fate of America. He's also taken a sharp turn to the right this election, as he has voted for Democratic presidential candidate in the past. Musk endorsed Trump in July and has donated nearly $75 million to Trump-aligned groups.
The ones that resonate, for me at least, are... I'm in Pennsylvania, and I'm here for a very important reason, which is... I can't emphasize enough that Pennsylvania is, I think, the linchpin in this election. And this election, I think, is going to decide the fate of America, and along with the fate of America, the fate of Western civilization. I think the the ones that resonate for me at least are, we want safer cities, we want a secure border, we want sensible government spending, we want support of the Constitution and the right, freedom of speech, right to bear arms, and that's what Donald Trump is going to do.
Well, rise of the Indian American community in the U.S. is in focus this election season. Indian origin Deputy Mayor of New York City, Meera Joshi, has an exclusive conversation with DD India correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh. She speaks about a shared cultural heritage, migrant crisis and the priorities for the city.
There are some 5 million Indian Americans in the United States. It may be a small percentage of the population, but they're playing increasingly important, often leadership role in diverse domains of the American society. I have with me one such leader, the Deputy Mayor of New York City, Meera Joshi. Welcome to DD India, ma'am.
Thank you.
First, I'd like to learn from you the manner in which you reflect on your Indian American heritage and your experience of public service in this beautiful city.
So I think I look back to, my father came here decades ago now. He's passed now. But he came from a family of public service in India. And so in some ways, I feel like I'm continuing that tradition in America.
The importance that Indian American community represents in the larger diversity of New York, of the United States. What can you tell us about it?
You can see across the nation, Indians are playing a larger role in politics. They're taking leadership positions in roles that, this is the first year we've seen mayors, senators, congressmen, possible president. But the other way, and I'd say this is a smaller but a very significant way, we're making Indian culture part of New York City culture.
In the context of your work, one of the important challenges that is faced by New York City, as I understand, is the migrant crisis. What can you tell us about it and what is being done to address the challenge?
So like many global cities that are the economic epicenter of a nation, we attract people that are looking for opportunity. And we've seen an influx of that in a volume and at a pace and in a short duration that is a historical high. The other thing about New York City is we are a sanctuary city. If you come here, we will house you, we will feed you, we will ensure that your child has a school to go to. That makes us unique, and that also makes us very popular. We've risen to the challenge. I'm not going to say it hasn't been a strain. It has been a strain. But we have really managed in a way that New Yorkers do when crisis calls, that is uniquely part of the spirit of the city. And now we're at a place where we're seeing it dissipate. So we're taking some of the tents down that we've had to use to house people. And now it's time to integrate. We're a city built on immigration, and this is the next wave of it. So we're happy to have people come. This is a city of opportunity. The pace has been hard to handle, but the ultimate integration is going to happen.
Finally, it must be a busy time for you as an administrator. You handle multiple portfolios, including infrastructure. It's also time for presidential elections. What are your key priorities for the city going forward?
Like every city around the world, we're going to be led by the climate crisis. We have to ensure that our infrastructure is well maintained and is ready to protect us for the times ahead. So part of what we do is ensure that we're building well. So I think that this is just the world we live in now, and resiliency and funding projects that fight the climate crisis are going to be bipartisan.
Thank you very much for speaking with DD India. That was the Deputy Mayor of New York City, Meera Joshi, talking about her Indian American heritage and key priorities at work, with camera person Jaishankar Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in New York.
Well, amid discontent in the U.S. over the state of its economy, the issue of cost of living crisis has taken center stage in this presidential election. Cost of living and housing affordability is pushing people to live on the streets. DD India's Amritpal Singh walked the streets of San Francisco to bring you this report on the state of homeless people in the United States. Take a look.
Think San Francisco and this is what comes to your mind. The Bay of Pacific, the famed Golden Gate Bridge, nice weather with a lot of sunshine. Skyscrapers housing global tech giants like Google and Meta, the Silicon Valley. Now sample this. This too is San Francisco. It's downtown. Over 10,000 homeless people sleeping and living on the streets. The underbelly of this century city. Life here is far from rosy.
I'm homeless because I've always been a person of the streets in terms of being like a universal broker, a facilitator of means and through the measure that has depth and true meaning of grace and form.
As both candidates dish out the blame on each other, the country's homeless crisis worsens. Cities and states unable to provide affordable housing, forcing their residents to end up on the street or in shelters.
I think it's a multifaceted issue in that there's certain homeless that have mental health issues, have issues with drugs, and it's a conundrum for San Francisco because we provide them housing, we provide them food stipends, but a lot of times they don't want to take that up.
As more elected officials throughout the country are running on promises to reduce homelessness, the problem is growing even as leaders try to solve it. Last year, the U.S. homeless population reached a high of more than 650,000, according to the Department of Housing and Urban Development's annual homelessness assessment report. Housing experts warn as rent increases and evictions will push more people into homelessness until cities build cheaper housing. Apart from the economic, the problem has a social aspect too.
The drug issue is a huge problem in terms of homelessness. A lot of times what happens is that they get addicted to the drug, and even though there might be services or a shelter that might be available for them, they don't want to come off the streets because they're so addicted to the drug. If you take them off the streets, they don't have that, they're not able to take it. And so it's a cycle where they're unable to get off the drug, they don't want to take the services or take any shelter because of that.
Out of the 10 most expensive counties in the United States, 5 are in San Francisco alone. Yet, the issue of chronic homelessness plagues this century city. And it's not just San Francisco alone. You name it, New York, Chicago, Boston, Atlanta. Homelessness is very much a part of the urban landscape in the United States. Coupled with the rising cost of living, homelessness threatens to become a major issue in these elections. With cameraman Sanjay Jaina, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in San Francisco downtown.
Well, Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was ousted from office on Thursday after being impeached in an unprecedented political saga that has gripped the nation. In a historic move, the Senate voted to impeach Gachagua on 5 of 11 charges after a similar motion was overwhelmingly approved by the lower house National Assembly last week. The vote capped a day of high drama which saw the embattled 59-year-old known as Riggy G failed to testify in his defense after being admitted to hospital with severe chest pain. He's the first deputy president to be sacked in this manner since impeachment was introduced in Kenya's revised 2010 constitution. Gachagua was found guilty on charges of gross violation of the constitution, including threatening judges and practicing ethnically divisive politics, but cleared of others, including corruption and money laundering. And life without electricity is wearing on Ecuadorians, punishing their already frail economy and raising questions about the political future. The central bank estimated 0.9% gross domestic product growth for the year is almost certainly out of reach, adding to the pressure on President Daniel Noboa. To meet the demands, the Turkish-owned Emre-based ship has docked at a port in southwestern Ecuador in Guayaquil as the South American country continues to suffer blackouts amid a severe drought that has affected its hydroelectric plants. The initiative is to relieve the population affected by power cuts, provides energy to 500,000 families in Ecuador. And still to come, DD India News Hour. Sea phase of joint naval drill exercise Malabar in Bay of Bengal to conclude today. 10 social media handles suspended for issuing Hawks bomb threat to airliners. A nomination for first phase of assembly elections in India's eastern state of Jharkhand to begin today.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Pakshi Khurana. Time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Global leaders hail Israel's killing of Hamas chief Sinwar. Israel PM says conflict could end tomorrow if Hamas lays down their arms and returned all hostages. Hezbollah announces new escalating phase in conflict with Israel, says a large-scale attack is imminent. North Korean leader calls South Korea a foreign and hostile country, says road blast marks end of evil relationship with the South. And India's President Draupadi Murmu to hold bilateral talks with Malawi leadership on strengthening ties between the two nations. Well, moving on, India's President Draupadi Murmu is currently on a 3-day state visit in Malawi till October 19th, where she will be meeting political and business leaders to further strengthen the ties with the African nation.
President Draupadi Murmu, who arrived on a 3-day state visit to the Southeast African country Malawi on Thursday, will hold bilateral meetings with the state leadership and other dignitaries to focus on issues to improve trade and economic activities between the two countries. Soon after arrival, President Murmu addressed the India-Malawi Business Roundtable, where she said that both countries can come together to find synergy in many ways.
मुझे ये जानकर भी प्रसन्नता हो रही है कि भारत के बिजनेस कम्युनिटी का एक व्यापार प्रतिनिधि मंडल भी मलावी के दौर पे आए हैं और मैं आशा करती हूँ कि वे हमारे व्यापार और आर्थिक संबंधों में विस्तार करेंगे। हमारे सहयोग के मुख्य स्तंभ डेवलपमेंट पार्टनरशिप, कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग, व्यापार और आर्थिक सहयोग, रक्षा, सुरक्षा और लोगों से लोगों का संपर्क है।
She is expected to hold bilateral talks with Malawi's President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera on strengthening Malawi-India relations. Addressing the Indian diaspora on Thursday evening, President Murmu praised the Indian community in Malawi for their significant contribution to the country's society and economy. She praised them for being a virtual connection between the two countries.
प्रवासी भारतीयों ने मलावी में विभिन्न सामाजिक और व्यवसायिक क्षेत्रों में महत्वपूर्ण योगदान दिया है।
This visit is the last leg of President Murmu's week-long 3-nation visit to Algeria, Mauritania and Malawi, with a focus on improving trade and bilateral relationships in the African region. The visit also comes exactly a year after the African Union was inducted in the G20 group during India's presidency last year.
Malawi is one of the few countries in the African continent which does not have a history of conflict or a war. In fact, it is one of the most stable and safest nations for investors. While India and Malawi are already trading partners, President Draupadi Murmu's visit to Malawi is only going to add strength to this economic relationship between the two countries. With camera person Sandeep in Lilongwe, Malawi, Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
Well, in yet another sharp response following Canadian PM Justin Trudeau's admission of having no hard evidence against India, India has held Trudeau responsible for damaging India-Canada ties. On Thursday, India's Foreign Ministry rebuffed Prime Minister Trudeau's claim citing pending 26 extradition request, marking a significant escalation in the ongoing diplomatic tensions. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continues to face flack not only from India, but also back home. Details in this report.
We have made our position very clear on this particular matter. Yesterday, we had again issued a statement saying that Canada has leveled serious allegations, but has so far not given any evidence to back it up. As regards our stance on the allegations, we will naturally reject false imputations against our diplomats. We had summoned the Acting High Commissioner of Canada, and thereafter conveyed that we had no faith that the Canadian government will look after the safety of our diplomats.
On Thursday, once again, the External Affairs Ministry of India hit back at Canada, mincing no words on unsubstantiated allegations levelled by Canadian government and calling them politically motivated. This comes close on the heels of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau being subjected to intense media scrutiny back home for failing to provide any credible evidence on alleged involvement of Indian diplomats in killing of Canadian extremist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in June 2023. While exposing the inaction of the Canadian administration, India's Ministry of External Affairs revealed the names of anti-India elements openly espousing extremism, violence and separatist ideology. According to India's Foreign Ministry, there are at least 26 extradition requests pending from the Canadian side.
There are 26 extradition requests pending with the Canadian side. These are over the last decade or more. Along with it, there are several provisional arrest requests which are also pending with the Canadian side of several criminals. Some of the notable ones who've been charged with terror and related crimes, I would like to name them. They are Gurjeet Singh, Gurjinder Singh, Gurpreet Singh, Lakhbir Singh Landa and Arshdeep Singh Gill.
Prime Minister Trudeau's close ally, Member Parliament Jagmeet Singh, staged a walkout from a presser while failing to answer a pointed question on imposition of sanctions on India. This has forced a larger question on the intent and nature of these acquisitions, precipitating the diplomatic crises between India and Canada further. While India sticks to its stance, Prime Minister Trudeau testifying before Canada's Foreign Interference Inquiry with just intelligence and not hard evidentiary proof clearly puts his credibility and the credibility of these serious acquisitions on India in a serious dock. Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India.
Well, with an aim to focus on enhancing bilateral trade relations, promoting India as a global investment hub and participating in crucial multilateral economic discussions, Union Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs Nirmala Sitharaman is in Mexico and US visit. This visit comes at a time when India is actively seeking to strengthen its economic ties with global partners and position itself as a significant player in the global financial landscape. In Mexico, the finance minister chaired the Tech Leaders Roundtable at the Chamber of Commerce and highlighted that rapid transformation that has been taking place in India while working towards the goal of Viksit Bharat in 2047. Following engagements in Mexico, Sitharaman will travel to the US where she will attend the IMF World Bank annual meetings in Washington, D.C. And Indians will be able to get the facility of Visa on Arrival facility while traveling to the United Arab Emirates. New updates will include Indian citizens and their family members who hold ordinary passports will be granted Visa on Arrival at all ports of entry in UAE. This applies to the holders of a valid visa, residence or green card issued by the US, European Union countries and UK. It also stated that the passport validity period shall not be less than 6 months. And the sea phase of Exercise Malabar, the naval drill featuring the navies of India, the US, Australia and Japan, to conclude on Friday. Naval warships embarked integral helicopters and long-range maritime patrol aircraft from the 4 continents are exercising in unison in the Bay of Bengal as part of the exercise. It began on Monday off the coast of Visakhapatnam. The participating navies are engaged in a wide range of maritime warfare operations covering the surface, subsurface and air warfare domains. According to a defense ministry, this phase of the naval drills will further strengthen interoperability between the participating nations and contribute towards enhancing regional security and stability in the Indo-Pacific. And intensifying its probe on the Hawks bomb threats received by several domestic and international flights in India. About 10 social media handles were suspended or blocked by cybersecurity agencies till now. As per officials, these handles were analyzed by a joint time of cyber, aviation security and intelligence services, following which orders were issued to suspend these accounts as they continue to issue mindless threats. Early on Wednesday, Delhi police registered an FIR in connection with the bomb threat to Bengaluru-bound Akasa air flight carrying 180 people and also launched a probe in 7 other similar cases, reported at Indira Gandhi International Airport this month. And ahead of the assembly election in the eastern state of Jharkhand, filing for nomination for the first phase will commence from today. 25th October is the last day of filing of nomination papers, whereas the scrutiny of nominations will be on 28th of October. The last day for the withdrawal of candidature is the 30th of this month. Polling for the first phase of polls will be on 13 November in 43 assembly constituencies, while the second phase polling will take place on the 20th of November. The counting of votes will be undertaken on the 23rd of November. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Indian Railways has reduced the advanced ticket booking period by half. Passengers will now be able to book train tickets up to 60 days in advance instead of the previous 120 days. This change will come into effect from 1st of November. However, cancellations of bookings made beyond the revised 60-day advance reservation period will still be permitted. For foreign tourists, however, the time limit for advanced bookings will remain unchanged at 365 days. The biggest and brightest super moon of the year amazed people across India with stunning views from various parts of the country. A super moon is a full moon that occurs when the moon is at perigee, its closest distance to the earth. It appears 14% larger and casts 30% more light than a typical full moon, according to the experts. Northeastern state of Manipur celebrated Mera Hau Chongpa festival that strengthens the cordial bond between the indigenous communities living in the hills and the valley people of Manipur. The main event was held at the holy site Kangla in Imphal, where leaders of indigenous communities from various hill districts joined the valley people in observing the festival, which symbolizes harmony and cultural exchanges. Facebook's parent company Meta has announced a joint initiative with the Indian government to empower Indians against online scams. In an attempt to foster a culture of digital safety and vigilance, a safety campaign called Scam Se Bacho or Beware of Scam has been launched. A remarkable display of talent and perseverance unfolded in Madhya Pradesh as a group of visually impaired girls took to the stage to perform a special Garba dance despite the Navratri festival having already ended. The vibrant and meticulously choreographed traditional dance celebrates the triumph of good over the evil. And still to come, indeed India News Now. Netflix adds millions of subscribers but cautious about slowing growth in the upcoming months due to increased competition. And South Africa stuns defending champion Australia by 8 wickets to reach the finals of ICC Women's World Cup 2024. And we'll bring you glimpses of Indian culture as Indian Week begins at Riyadh season 2024. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana and on to some business news now. International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said she has had a positive experience working with current and past U.S. administrations on Thursday. She added that she expected U.S. presidential candidates Trump and Harris would both take a very pragmatic approach to the IMF and the World Bank.
My experience with the U.S. any administration has been always very positive. The U.S. is very pragmatic. It brings a can-do attitude. It is demanding, and I like that. It demands from these institutions to perform. In the case of capital increase, the capital increase only became possible when the World Bank took a number of measures that made the performance of the bank stronger. So from that perspective, I think we can see the same very practical, pragmatic attitude in the future.
Well, the European Central Bank cut interest rates on Thursday for the third time this year, saying inflation in the Eurozone was increasingly under control while the outlook for the bloc's economy was worsening. The Frankfurt-based institution reduced rates by a quarter point following a cut of the same size at its last meeting in September. The quarter-point cut brings the rate that the ECB plays on bank deposit down by 3.25%. And in markets, European and US stock markets mainly rose on Thursday as the European Central Bank cut interest rates, and results from key chip maker TSMC calmed fears that the tech sector was struggling. All the major Eurozone exchanges closed higher after the ECB cut its main interest rate a quarter percentage point and expressed confidence that inflation is coming under control. US stocks also followed their European counterparts higher, and gold touched an all-time high on Thursday. The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq paired their gains to an essentially unchanged on Thursday, while the Dow notched a record closing high as investors parsed an array of mixed quarterly earnings and digested a series of robust economic reports. And Netflix announced on Thursday that it added over 5 million new subscribers in the most recent quarter, bringing the total number of global subscribers to over 247 million. However, the streaming giant cautioned about slowing growth in the upcoming months, attributing it to increasing competition and challenging in retaining subscribers amid a surge in new streaming services. Despite the addition of new content and the introduction of an ad-supported tier, Netflix anticipates a more tempered increase in subscriptions moving forward, particularly in saturated markets like the US and Europe. And you're watching DD India News. Our time now for some sports news. Day 3 of the test match between India and New Zealand resumes. New Zealand has extended their lead past 150 after host India were bundled out for a dismal 46, which is their worst total on home soil. Unfortunately, Rishabh Pant will not be keeping wickets on day 3 as he suffered a blow on his knee, which forced him to walk off field on day 2. Dhruv Jurel will keep the wickets in the absence of the left-hander. Rachin Ravindra and Daryl Mitchell resumed the proceedings for New Zealand on day 3. However, Mitchell lost his wicket soon courtesy of Mohammad Siraj's back of a length delivery followed by Bumrah's outswinger that sent Tom Blundell back. Rohit Sharma-led team fought hope for a better outing on the third day. And Anneke Bosch powered South Africa into the ICC Women's T20 World Cup 2024 final with an commencing 74, leading her side to an 8-wicket victory over defending champions Australia. South Africa skipper Woolward won the toss and opted to bowl, with South Africa restricting Australia to 134 for 5 despite a late surge from the Aussies. Bosch's career best knock helped South Africa chase down Australia's total of 135 in just 17.2 overs. Captain Laura Woolward also contributed with a composed 42 from 37 balls before being dismissed in the 15th over. Favourites Australia in their first ICC tournament after Meg Lanning's retirement missed key player Eliza Haley due to injury and ended their campaign in the semi-finals. And India's PV Sindhu completed a stunning comeback against the People's Republic of China's Han Yu to march into the women's single quarter-finals of the Denmark Open badminton tournament in Odense on Thursday. Sindhu conceded the opening game against her world number 7 Chinese opponent but came roaring back to win the contest 18-21, 21-12, 21-16 in 1 hour and 3 minutes. Sindhu will face Indonesia's world number 8 Gregoria Mariska Tanjung on Friday. And world number 1 Iga Swiatek has added Belgian Wim Fissette to her team following her recent split with long-term coach Tomas Wiltorowski. The 23-year-old, who enjoyed 3 successive seasons with Wiltorowski, is excited about the fresh direction her career will take under Fissette's guidance. Fissette's known for his work with former Grand Slam champion like Kim Clijsters, Angelique Kerber and most recently Naomi Osaka brings a wealth of experience. The 44-year-old helped Osaka secure 2 of her 4 major titles before parting ways with her in September. Swiatek shared her enthusiasm on social media, stating that she's excited and looking forward to working with Fissette. And Rafael Nadal to lock horns with old rival Novak Djokovic for the last time before the Spaniard ends his illustrious career. The pair set to meet at the 6th Grand Slam exhibition event in Saudi Arabia. Nadal lost 6-3, 6-3 to Carlos Alcaraz in the semi-finals on Thursday to set up a third-place clash against Djokovic, who was beaten by Jannik Sinner. While number 1 Sinner will meet Alcaraz in the finals at Riyadh, the 22-time Grand Slam champion, who announced his retirement last week, has faced Djokovic in 60 matches and has triumphed 29 times to the Serbs' 31. The last time Nadal faced 24-time Grand Slam champion Djokovic was in the second round of the Paris Olympics, where he lost 6-1, 6-4. And Chelsea extended their perfect start to the season by defeating Dutch side 23-1 in UEFA Women's Champions League, moving to the top of Group B. Aggie Beaver Jones opened the scoring with a deflected long-range effort after just 7 minutes, and Maika Hamano doubled the lead with a lob over the 20 goalkeeper after 18 minutes. Gurudeton added a third from the penalty spot following a foul on Meira Ramirez, sealing the win for Chelsea. 20 managed to pull one back in the 68th minute through Nikki Van Chick, but it wasn't enough to stop Chelsea's dominance. Chelsea, runners-up in 2021, are chasing their first ever title in the competition. And Celtic fell 4-0 to Real Madrid in their second group stage match of the Women's Champions League. Real Madrid's Caroline Weyer marked her return from injury with a stunning long-range opener just 7 minutes into the match at the Alfredo Di Stefano Stadium. In the second half, Celtic grew into the game with Emma Lawton and Murphy Agnew missing crucial chances to equalise. However, Real Madrid soon regained control. Signe Bruns' header made it 2-0 in the 72nd minute before Caroline Moller chipped past Celtic goalkeeper Kelsey Daugherty to add a third. Linda Caicedo completed the scoring with a late penalty, giving Real their first points of the group stage after losing to Chelsea in their opener. And India Week is being celebrated at AI Suwaidi Park as part of the Riyadh season in Saudi Arabia. The event highlights Indian culture, cuisine and traditions, showcasing various activities and performances. Artists from the Indian community performed at the event. Take a look. Alright, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. Lipak Shikurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.